Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
Hey, I met you. You are not cool.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am too smart. I am too smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
Stick around.
Visit us at IHateCritics.net. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Stitcher. That's not a social media site. Instagram. Critics Pod. That's the handle for Twitter and Instagram. There you can participate in our top fives, watch the trailers, read Sean's reviews, read any news we share, and interact with each other. We're also on,
Can I just point out, I haven't posted many reviews because I'm trying to move to another website to host my reviews. And so as soon as I have that situation settled, then I'll have the posts back up.
well,
I just assumed the movies were shitty and you didn't want to talk about it.
I'm still doing the list of like the top movies I've seen this year, but I was writing a little blurb behind all of them, and I've fallen behind like 2 months.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But I do
I actually
got the list.
started a draft of the 2018 movies. This was about a month ago, and you guys are so far ahead of me now. It's just a joke if I start to post something. If you follow the show, I think you know where I stand, I suppose.
What happens is you'll get really motivated like mid-April, and you'll actually do it, and then you'll forget about it till July. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Sounds about right.
And I'm still trying to decide where to throw Raiders of the Lost Ark in my list, because it's,
Number
it's
one.
not as bad. Well, no. And I've been having arguments with myself all week long about that. We should do another argument over Raiders of the Lost Ark. It'll be fun. Raiders versus Rocky, and here's why I'm right. Anyway, the podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify now. And, we're working our way towards TuneIn, and I think Alexa's eventually going to get podcasts. So we are on Spotify if you want to listen there. But no matter where you listen to us, please go to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. It really helps us move up the charts and compete with the other podcasts. And then Patreon. IHateCritics.net/Patreon is the best way to support the podcast. We are moving forward with the book. We've got the document started. We're going to start adding our, making it a book form. We're in the middle of that right now, so that's helping us move that along. The video's coming as well. A lot of things in the pipeline, so IHateCritics.net/Patreon. Get yourself a credit on the show. Am I forgetting anything? That's
I don't
all the
think
intro
so.
stuff. We have a lot of trailers this week, so instead of news, we'll just do trailers, and I'll just start with Terminal. Margot Robbie. What'd you think?
What in the world is this, man? I can't figure it out. Is this a Alice in Wonderland type thing? Because it's a teaser trailer, and the
Right.
teaser is such a tease that I literally had no idea what was going on. And I tried to look it up on IMDb, and my internet connection pooped out. So I have no idea what it's about still. Do you know?
No, but I like not knowing. I think that's kind of what makes it exciting. Makes me want to keep following up with this, what the actual trailer is going to be, and maybe by trailer 3 I'll be like, oh fuck this. But as of right now, I like not knowing.
We know that it could be an Alice in Wonderland film. It could be something completely unrelated. And we know that it is not a remake of the Tom Hanks Steven Spielberg film from 2004
know
that
that.
Sean hates.
Yes.
I did not see this trailer. I don't think I did.
And
if
it
I did, I
wasn't-
don't remember, which is probably not great for the trailer.
It was just kind of her walking more than anything.
Yeah, and she gets to use her native accent. She's not playing an American here, so that's good for her. I think at this point, people might actually think that Margot Robbie is American because she's been Harley Quinn and
Specifically-
Tonya Harding.
Specifically East Coast.
Yes.
Then Deadpool 2.
Yeah, this is a much better trailer. I'm a little bit. It's a little bit better. I'm a little bit less nervous, I guess.
It's so great. All of the it's swearing is one thing, okay? And to see a trailer like this for such a big movie and then have it be a red band trailer is such a weird concept, but it's very funny. I mean, I laughed out loud a few times, of course, and I geeked out too because he's introducing the idea of the X-Force in here, and I have no idea what character Terry Crews is playing, but Terry Crews is in the movie. That's great. I don't know why Bill Skarsgård is in this film, but I don't know who he's playing. It's still kind of up for debate as to who he's playing. But the only concern that I had in thinking about how many characters are here is once you introduce more characters, including basically a second leading man in Josh Brolin, that takes screen time away from Ryan Reynolds. And the last thing I want is less of him. So I want to make sure that this film gives him the due time. Basically,
I missed it, but did you catch that there was a reference to Blake Lively in the trailer?
No,
I read this on. I just caught the headline on Twitter. I didn't actually see it when I saw the trailer. I saw the trailer first, and then I saw this. But apparently, he sneaks in a reference to Blake Lively in the trailer.
I'm not surprised. I missed it myself, but I'm sure there's a lot of things I missed that, if you went back and watched this 4 or 5 times, that you'd pick up on.
This is a Hollywood couple I need to stick together because it's the only chance I have for Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively to work on my Masters of the Universe movie. So, because I want him to be Orko. That's the only way that Orko gets into the movie is if it's Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively can be She-Ra. That's what I want, and then they can spend time on set together. This
Bradley Cooper could do it. He did Rocket or whatever.
Wait, you want Orko to have like an East Coast Philadelphia accent?
No, I'm just saying he could do it.
In terms of getting it, sure.
But in terms of having Orko in the movie, you'd have to have a name.
Right. Comic relief. How do you believe that a ghost is funny that can come up with spells and stuff? A floating thing with a big O on his chest.
You don't
Only
realize,
Ryan Reynolds.
You don't realize right now, ladies and gentlemen, just how deep you are within Josh's mind.
It's true. I've done an entire opening treatment for my Masters of the Universe movie that's never going to happen. And you were to see it at some point, and then I realized how embarrassed I was, and I didn't put it online.
How do you get Orko into this thing?
Because he works with the sorceress. You see? Okay, stop,
right,
Josh.
But you gotta
stop.
get the sorceress.
That was the meanest thing you've done yet.
I'm genuinely curious. That's the thing.
The Masters of the Universe idea can work out so well if you take it seriously, but Orko is this
Well, wasn't Orko supposed to be in the first film, but they switched it to make him that little troll dude?
That troll dude, yeah, and that didn't work at all, and he had this key thing that he played that lit up with terrible special effects.
That was supposed to be Orko.
Yeah, and that
Orko's just a sidekick character.
Work.
You can work him in anywhere.
But if you have Ryan Reynolds doing the voice of the CGI character,
but you got to do the origin story to properly tell the story. So does Orko in the origin? That's the
yes.
Have you seen the documentary, the Toys documentary on Netflix?
The Toys That Made Us?
Yeah.
Of course I have. I have watched all of these episodes more than once.
I've only watched the He-Man one because I don't really play with the other ones. But just the way that they came up with the TV show based on that.
I know we're off on tangents here, but this is a pretty big one. But there's a guy on YouTube named Phalis who reviews knockoff toys. And you would not believe how often those He-Man figures still get made today in other countries and then repackaged as other kinds of creatures, wrestlers, aliens. It's ridiculous, and it's absolutely hilarious. Check out Phalis on YouTube, Phelous.
That sounds amazing. I would love to see how they repurposed Stinkor or Mossman.
Just to keep it into movies, he did a review of a movie and a toy that was a combination of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the GoBots by somebody who'd never seen either product in terms of their cartoon origins. So they had no idea what they were dealing with. And the movie, Your Friend Power 5, is one of the worst films ever made. It is the Ninja Turtles as aliens with a bunch of guys in plastic shredder outfits as bad guy sharks.
I don't see what's wrong with this, Bob.
And there are GoBots, animated GoBots that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles get inside like their Power Rangers.
That sounds like a dream I had when I was 8 years old. I don't understand.
Michael Bay's nowhere near it.
Right.
And Michael Bay's remaking it next year. No.
Why not?
Your Friend Power 5, if you want to try and power through that.
Is it available on YouTube?
It is.
Yes.
You have no time to watch it. Who you kidding?
I know. Sorry, Jessica Jones. I'm watching Your Friend Power 5.
The Spy Who Dumped Me.
I did see this trailer. I wasn't as impressed as a lot of people seem to be. A lot of people found this pretty funny. I thought it was okay. I felt like I've seen this concept somewhere else before.
You have, right? The Melissa McCarthy spy movie, right?
Kind of.
Or the Melissa McCarthy Sandra Bullock movie. Is that anywhere? I don't even know.
No, she was real. She was a real cop in that movie, and and Bullock was a real cop. So. No,
so that's the only difference. Those are real cops.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen this idea before somewhere. I felt like I'd heard these jokes somewhere before.
That title sounds so familiar too.
There's somebody in the audience right now screaming at their podcast device. It's this, you idiots!
The Austin Powers has a similar title. I don't know. For me, it's more. I really like Kate McKinnon. It's cool to see her finally kind of move into that lead role. Mila Kunis, I'm neither here nor there, and she's, I guess, a good straight person if she's playing the straight lead person here. But
she tends to surprise me in roles, but when you see her in trailers, for some reason they don't flatter her in trailers. She comes off a little bit flat, especially when she's paired with somebody who's a lot funnier than she is.
Well, like the Bad Moms movies, they're fine for what they are, but it's really the supporting cast around her that she kind of carries it and moves forward. But it's Catherine Hahn and Kristen Bell and the people around her that really make it funny.
I think for me, you just have to say Mila Kunis. I think I'm there. I mean, that's not really a problem. She's got enough charisma and she lights up the screen, but she isn't a leading lady, I guess you could say. Jupiter Ascending still isn't sticking in my head.
It's stuck in mine. I wish it would go away.
It definitely didn't wow me. We can agree that it didn't.
It's a terrible film. It wowed me in the exact wrong way.
They swung for the fences.
This is bad. It's the reaction. And they made her bad, too. Whereas you made a good point about her as a supporting player because she's exceptional in Black Swan.
Oh, yeah. 8th grade.
I did not see this one.
A24.
Yeah. Created by Bo Burnham.
Yes, I did see that. Okay. I forgot the title. Go ahead, Barrow. Sorry.
Bo Burnham as a comic... 9 out of 10 of his jokes don't work for me. He's very, very obnoxious to me, to the point of I turned off comedies. I've turned off comedy specials of his, but that one joke that he does hit on for me, I'm like, oh wow, that is really great. So him directing and writing a movie for A24, I can see him accessing his experiences as an 8th grader because that's pretty much what his mind is on. His entire comedy routine is, I'm 13 years old. I'm making fart jokes again. I can see this working actually really well. Trailer's well done. It fits into this A24 pantheon that we're used to seeing, almost like Lady Bird, but younger. It probably won't be on that level, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, very well. I mean, Lady Bird, Big Sick. It seems like more you have that funny voice, but in a almost a serious manner. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about it.
I think it's going to be great. His friends have been tweeting about it. A lot of really smart people have been tweeting about it and how much they love it, and that gives me a reason to be hopeful for it. The trailer is really great, and he was awesome in Big Sick as one of Kumail's friends.
Yeah. That's where he. Okay, thank you. Once you said Big Sick, I was like, wasn't he in that?
Yeah,
he was. Okay,
he was really fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't want to punch him. That's an accomplishment for him.
Sicario 2. I don't know.
I've lost complete faith in this. This is not going to be good.
Because Taylor Sheridan is still involved, I still have some faith in it. I think is he even directing this? Because I feel
really
like he
like
is.
him, but is he? I don't know if he is. I don't.
He definitely wrote the script. That I know for sure.
Based off of this trailer, it doesn't seem like it. It's not a great trailer.
I wish I knew who directed it
And
off the top of my
Benicio
head.
del Toro is so flat. Like, he's just... Does he have energy? Does he care at all about what he's doing? Does he care at all about this movie? Because his manner is so relaxed. And I know that's what he's going for. And that's what he kind of did in the first film. But he's got to have something to make me feel like he's engaged in this. And this trailer gave me nothing.
Taylor Sheridan wrote it. Stefano Salima
Oh, no.
directed it.
Well, it's no Denny Villeneuve as far as we're aware yet. I mean, they gave this property to somebody that probably showed some sort of promise, depending on what he'd done before.
Maybe, but Sicario was good, but how big of a hit was it? I mean, it was an okay hit, I think, but it wasn't like a...
Maybe it did better internationally.
I think so too. In that weekend, I remember that it was like the Goosebumps, Crimson Peak, and Sicario weekend, and it held its own. And that movie was so fantastic. I mean, it made my top 10 that year. I own that movie. I don't own Crimson Peak or Goosebumps, and I will happily go back to it because of that movie was like a horror movie, and the music in this trailer definitely reminded me of that film. But there's no way that it could be on that level. I think the good part about this, Del Toro didn't get nominated for that performance, and I thought it was the best performance of that year, period. There's no way it can be on that level, but at least they're not making a film that just relies on the Sicario title and then it's going direct to video. This is a theatrical release, and it still has the name people in it other than Emily Blunt.
Just a bit of an odd aside. The first trailer had that shot of Del Toro with the gun, and he's doing it with the finger. And I was talking to a guy at work who's a gun guy. He's a gun expert. He teaches other people gun safety. He knows everything about guns. And he goes, "That's the silliest thing I've seen in a movie. Like, that's just utterly. What advantage does that give you? None. There's just nothing to this." He thought he actually laughed out loud when he saw that in the trailer.
That's interesting. I have never seen that before, and I was thinking that since he is something of a hitman,
it's
a particular weapon that makes you want to do that.
It's the kind of thing that amateurs would do with a gun. If you've never held a gun before, you would just walk up and play with it like that.
That's what I did with my Han Solo blaster back in 1983, but...
Could have done that in Death Wish. He was supposed to be an amateur. And then, Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Aw, what a cool trailer.
I think it looks good, not in that dickish tone that
I watched this trailer right after being on a message board on Facebook. This was a hell of a palate cleanser, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Mr. Rogers... I needed this trailer. It was like taking a bath, But I didn't realize it was going to be a documentary. I thought that this was going to be a trailer for the Tom Hanks film that's coming out because he's playing Mr. Rogers. And then I realized I just saw that news like a month ago that he was playing Mr. Rogers. There's no way that the trailer's out this quickly. I mean, I'd be happy to see this for sure. It'll call back a time in life where my parents, instead of having iPads at that time, sat me in front of the screen for Mr. Rogers. But there wasn't anything wrong with that. It really was very wholesome and very educational, and it mattered. So this documentary should be fun to revisit. Maybe it will teach us something like the trailer purports.
It looks like it's more than just a nostalgia trip too, though. It looks like there's like history there to learn stuff that they went through. And I don't know, you always hear he was a war hero, he's got tattoos up and down. It's not whether that's true or not, I have no idea, but I've heard it a million times. He's killed so many people. But he's got a history there, and I'm just curious what, I'm genuinely interested in how this movie goes.
And there was never anything, at least as far as I know, about Mr. Rogers and some sort of impropriety. It seems like everyone... There was never yet. You're right. in this documentary will ruin it.
The PR people are holding back the woman who is wanting to make. They're going to wait for the movie to come out, and then, yeah.
There's such an opportunity.
Right now, there's a conversation going on in a lawyer's office. Do we do it now with the documentary, or do we wait for the Tom Hanks movie? What's going to get us the bigger?
I hope that it stays pure.
Gloria Allred's office, I'm guessing. I'm just guessing.
And then in 10 years, we're going to have Mr. Hanks versus Mr. Hanks and Mr. Rogers, like the Jim and Andy documentary, where Tom Hanks can't come out of character for.
He's just so damn nice to everybody all the time. Oh, he'll never take that sweater off.
Because he's got tattoos on his arm. All right, should we start the show?
Oh, yeah, probably. We're done with trailers now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a weird March. Nothing's really come out yet, so Pacific Rim Uprising.
Yeah, Pacific Rim Uprising is a sequel to Pacific Rim 2013, directed by Guillermo del Toro. Here it's directed by Stephen DeKnight, who's a TV veteran. And I'm very hard on TV, obviously, when I say that. TV directors do have a hard time transitioning to making movies. It's a different medium, and trying to adjust your way of looking at things can be different. And I think this kind of challenge was a little too overwhelming for him, because a lot of the big stuff that he's got to do with the biggest special effects, the Jaegers, these giant robots, they're clumsy. They're not well lit. You don't get to see it very well. Everything's falling around, and it's all kind of CGI trying to hide something, obviously, because they just can't get it to look like something cool. And that's really unfortunate. Del Toro did that by making a B movie, and really embracing making a B movie in Pacific Rim. This movie is trying to act like a Transformers movie, but it wants to be somehow superior to it. Slapping Del Toro's name on it as an executive producer and trying to convince you that this isn't just another Transformers movie. It is. It's just another Transformers movie. It's just as loud. It's just as poorly made. It's it's got just as many bad jokes. The cast is a little bit better because John Boyega's better than what the Transformers have put out there. In terms of likability, Wahlberg, I know he's a great actor, but when he wants to be in this crap, he lowers himself to it as low as he can go. John Boyega does lift things up. There's a lot of really bad things about this. I think the biggest thing that bothered me, Rinko Kikuchi is out of the movie very quickly. They use her just as a way to prop up Boyega's character, which he didn't need, and then they dispatch her very unceremoniously. And having her having been so important in the first film, I was so out of it by then. But it gets even worse with what they do with Charlie Day's character. It is so silly. You will laugh out loud when you see what they do with Charlie Day's character in this movie, and it is the least believable thing. He's just not a guy who can make this kind of thing work. And, yeah, the whole thing doesn't work.
I didn't see this in the theater, and I think we brought it to the show because 2013 we were on, right?
Yeah.
And
it was on. We watched it that year.
I didn't see it, and I waited until I could rent the 3D version of it. I thought at home, 3D, I'll be able to take advantage of what this film intended, which was big things, having fun, B-movie stuff that you were talking about. And I was so bored watching Pacific Rim that I fell asleep about halfway through, even with Idris Elba on screen. It didn't do anything for me. And so my interest level in Pacific Rim Uprising is more behind the scenes. How were they able to get a sequel, when the first one barely scratched the surfaces of profitability? It seemed like one of those things that you could barely do.
I think it was big in China and Japan.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. And I don't always see those foreign box offices. And, of course, that's the only reason that this made it in the theater. Yeah. And I've been critical of Del Toro in the past. I understand what he was going for with that first one, just like you said. But it didn't bring me to the theater for this one. It was optioned to my child,
right,
which is really the target audience, right? You've got big robots battling big monsters, and he still said, I said, wait a minute, Finn from Star Wars is in it. So if you can't get an 11-year-old into the theater on its opening weekend, it's not a good sign.
I barely remember the first film. I remember not hating it, right? Did I not?
I remember saying it was as good as a movie like
Yeah.
that could be
Yeah, there you
because
go.
Del Toro did it.
Yeah.
But it could only be so good because it's a robot fighting movie.
Oddly enough, Mark Wahlberg's character in Transformer is Cade Jaeger, just like the Jaegers.
Ooh.
Anything else on Pacific Rim?
It's not worth your time.
Well, then I guess we'll jump to our top 5.
Put your top 5. Who's your top 5?
The hard part is that one of the movies that inspired it, we didn't get around to, so it's going to seem kind of random.
Yeah, I didn't get to see, what's it called? John the Apostle. Was that it? Paul the Apostle.
Paul the Apostle.
Whatever.
Maybe John's an apostle too. I don't
pretty
remember.
sure. I thought there was an Apostle John, maybe.
There's a lot of apostles.
Jimmy, Dave, Elmo.
Ringo the Apostle. The Book of Ringo. Eventually, Pureflix is going to get to all of them. Don't worry.
We'll start with Instagram. Good Steve had number 5, Power Rangers 2016. 4, Passion of the Christ. 3, Pacific Rim. 2, Iron Giant. 1, Risen. Jason from New Mexico posted a country song called She Left Me for Jesus, which I wish I would have watched. I remember him posting it, and then I forgot about it. He had number 5, Killing Jesus. 4, Fist of Jesus. 3, Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter. 2, White Pop Jesus. And number 1, Life of Brian.
Boy, Jesus really took the wheel on that topic.
I had number 5, Passion of the Christ. 4, The Life of Brian. 3, Dogma. 2, Last Temptation of Christ. And number 1, The Big Lebowski.
You're going to have to read mine, man. I'm not getting a signal.
Josh has number 5, Avengers, Age of Ultron. Ultron was fantastic. 4, The Iron Giant. 3, Flight of the Navigator. The whole ship was a giant alien robot. 2, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. And number 1, The Matrix Reloaded.
I took the Jesus thing slightly beyond the idea of a literal Jesus.
Yeah. My list kind of bounces around a little bit because I was looking at giant monster movies and or giant robot movies, and I was just going to do a list of those, but then I saw Dogma, yeah, I got to put that on there. Big Lebowski is my favorite movie of all time, and The Jesus, obviously.
Right.
So that would be my number 1, obviously, and Dogma right behind it. But I could not make this list without mentioning King Kong Escapes, where King Kong fights a robot King Kong.
That's a thing?
That's a thing. That's a real movie.
Is it on YouTube?
I don't know. And then Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I'm not a big Godzilla fan, but Mechagodzilla is kind of awesome.
That's fun to say.
Absolutely. It's too bad that the mechanical shark in Jaws 3 wasn't cool, or that movie wasn't cool at all.
Yeah.
Because being able to say giant robot shark would be fun too.
And obviously, this is the list that's meant to be movie stuff, but I would have put Mecha Streisand on my list from South Park.
Family Guy, Passion of the Christ 2, Crucify This. He is an honorable mention on my list.
Yeah, I was going to do what Josh didn't put like Cool Hand Luke on it or something like that, but
By the way, one of the greatest top 5 moments of all time on this show, Bob, is realizing on your list when it said The Big Lebowski, I'm like, what the hell has Jesus got to do with The Big Lebowski? And then I just busted out laughing.
I was actually done, ready to hit post, and then it popped in my head, and I'm like, oh shit, I got to redo this.
Yeah, that was great. I spit something out of my mouth at the time.
In fairness, not that original because everybody.
Sure.
If I would have done it, somebody would have got to it. Maybe Sean would have done it. Where do we got next? Sherlock Gnomes.
All right, next. No, just kidding.
Midnight Sun.
Sherlock Gnomes is the sequel to Gnomeo and Juliet. Is this Illumination? I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Nope.
I think there were a million. I thought I saw Minions somewhere. Did you know this Gnomeo and Juliet came out 10 years ago? That was surprising. I didn't know it had been 10 years because I completely forgot that movie existed.
No, I did not.
Oh,
I
he's
remember
on fire.
That might be the
Thanks,
first
Dad.
movie my daughter's been to when she was like 10.
It's not good. Johnny Depp's voice is all right as Sherlock. Gnomes are going missing. Somebody's taking him hostage. I guessed what the plot was about 10 minutes in.
Way to go.
I know, gold star for me. Yeah, it's. I didn't laugh. I wasn't actively angry at it, so that's a thing. At least I wasn't like sitting there all pissed off that I was watching it. So there's that. It's forgettable. I'm sure maybe very little kids might enjoy it, and it won't offend you. Take a book if you're taking the kids and just enjoy. Little book, little pen light.
Did you see a lot of cell phone lights on throughout the theater with the parents next to their kids?
That should be allowed in that movie. Like, no one should come in and stop you.
Don't worry about turning your phone off. Just turn the volume down
Bring
a
your
little
phone, bring your Kindle.
A brief discussion of gnomes in the popular culture, because there was a point in time where lawn gnomes, like in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, was like more of a trend. And then the Travelocity gnome being a part of main commercial culture was there, and then it's been a while.
Right. Well, and the greatest gnome in movies of all time, do you know? Do you know?
I don't know him. Tell me.
Ah! He did it again.
Last time, I promise.
Teed it up right there. Amelie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she takes her dad's gnome and takes it around the world. That was lovely.
It is lovely.
Midnight Sun.
He will not brook our nonsense. It's like a teacher scolding us.
I mean, my guess is hipsters got sick of gnomes, and that's why they went away. I don't know. I blame everything on hipsters that I don't like.
That's a good way to go.
Midnight Sun.
Midnight Sun is the latest. And I thought when I created this term back in 2003 that it was going to light film criticism on fire and really take over the whole genre, like not unlike what Nathan Rabin did with Manic Pixie Dream Girl. I thought I got mine here, the Dead Ingenue movie, but it never caught on. But this is yet another in that genre of the Dead Ingenue, where you've got this pretty girl who's dying of pretty cancer. And she gets one last chance at romance before she passes away.
I remember this when you were talking about The Fault in Our Stars. I laughed out loud then too. This is a good one.
Inspired by my review in 2003, I believe it was, of A Walk to Remember with Mandy Moore dying of pretty cancer. And here it's Bella Thorne, who's, she plays a girl who cannot get into sunlight. If she is in a second of sunlight, she will get cancer and die. And that's the plot.
I do got a question.
Yes.
Because I know my wife's like this and a couple of other friends, females, that are like this, not to generalize on females. Will she actually get cancer, or does she think she'll get cancer?
That would be a spoiler.
You know what I'm
He's
saying?
going out on a limb here. You're a brave man.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about.
I got something. It must be Dr. Bill's later. You're fine. No, there's something wrong with me.
There's nothing. There's none of that. Once it's very definitive, and there's a reason actually that it's very definitive, and there is one thing about this movie that is really, really good, and it's Rob Riggle. Rob Riggle plays Bella Thorne's dad. And it's not to say that she's bad. She's not bad. She's actually she shows some flair here. That she's not like a young Julia Roberts. But this is not a great role for anyone, because it's not a great movie for anyone. But except for Rob Riggle, who is incredible. He plays her father, and he is so real. And when you watch as Rob Riggle gets serious, and he's in front of the doctor, and he's pouring his heart out, it is genuinely moving. Like, I'm kind of catching up right here just thinking about it. That's how good he is. And he's that way throughout the movie. He's the best thing in it.
I love Rob Riggle. I'd love to see him get like a big sick, not to bring that back. His own lead movie, even though he's been a great supporting guy.
He may have earned it from this because he is just generally just so great.
But the movie's got to be successful.
The movie's awful, and Patrick Schwarzenegger, can we stop? I know talent is not genetic. It is not a genetic trait.
Well, let's be fair. It's not so much that he was talented. He was just a body to look at. He didn't have to talk. He just had to look cool in almost all of his movies.
And look pretty. He looks very pretty. And strangely enough, he looks. I guess if you look at him at the right angle, you can see the young Schwarzenegger, but I see Tom Cruise. He looks so much like Tom Cruise, it's crazy. Like Tom Cruise crossed with a Kennedy. That's what this guy is.
Tell us more.
I was going to say, does he look like the maid? But
We've got a story here.
He's pretty, but he doesn't have pretty cancer.
Okay. Not Ansel Elgort. Okay.
I know I'm making a lot of fun of this movie. This is a real disease. So let's just make that very clear. This is based off of a real thing.
Right.
And I do take that very seriously, just not this movie.
Right. Now, does the movie portray the disease accurately, though? That's, I guess,
As far as I know, I don't know enough about it to completely dismiss it.
It's a safe answer.
I wonder if that is how somebody at some point in time maybe had this disease a long time ago, and so they literally were shut-ins, and then the idea of the vampire came about. Somebody that had to be inside at all times, and they were very pale, lacked pigment, et cetera, and maybe looked sickly, the vitamin D processes in the body not going through. I'm literally trying to figure out, because of the way that we lacked understanding for diseases way back when, if the idea of vampires came from something along these lines.
You know what you really get at? I mean, it's really fascinating how anybody even found this cancer. I mean, it takes like 2 seconds for it to happen to this girl.
I thought you were trying to transition into the Tommy Wiseau movie.
You totally could, I suppose.
But I'm not gonna. Unsane.
Unsane. Steven Soderbergh directed. Claire Foy and Joshua Leonard are the stars here, along with Jay Farrow. And it's Soderbergh. It's exceptional. Soderbergh is one of the best directors working. He always has been. And everybody's paying attention to the cell phone thing. This movie was shot on, I believe, 6 different iPhones is how this was shot. It never really plays a role in the movie. Like, the idea that it is an iPhone, it looks like a regular movie to me. And that's, I guess what it is a demonstration of the quality of the iPhone. That's what is the quality of it is anybody could shoot a movie because the iPhone cameras that he's using are so great. So you let's take that and put that aside because it doesn't really play a role in the movie. The thing that he's made here is a really great horror thriller. So the idea is that Claire Foy is running from a stalker, played by Joshua Leonard. She's moved to a new town. She's got a new job, a new place to live, far away from him, she hopes. This has caused a great deal of trauma in her life. She's had a lot of trauma throughout her life, so she's got some issues that she just needs a therapist to talk to about. She makes the mistake of going to this particular hospital to just consult with a physician. She ends up accidentally, unknowingly signing a document that commits her for 24 hours. She didn't realize that was what she was signing. So they commit her for 24 hours. And then she has an outburst. And they decide that they're going to keep her for 7 more days against her will. And it's terrifying how plausible that seems. That here's this person who is not mentally ill. She's just having some trouble in life, and she's had some suicidal ideation. But she's not a threat to anybody. And they manage to keep her there. And the way that he sets that up, the way he makes that plausible, it will give you chills. It will give you literal chills. It'll make you kind of question whether you ever want to get help again. Like, it's that level of scary. So she's being held for 7 days, and she finds that her stalker has found her and has found a way to get a job at this hospital. And since they're treating her like she's mentally ill, obviously when she sees him and flips out, it's part of her mental illness. and that just makes it just keeps rolling and getting more frightening and chilling from there. This is a really great performance by Claire Foy. Joshua Leonard is legit creepy, and Chris, he's best known for The Blair Witch. He was really great in a movie called Hump Day. If you want to check out a very strange, not so great movie that he was really good in with the Duplass brothers, I believe. Yeah, man, this movie is amazing. Really, really fantastic movie. Really great horror thriller that happens to have been shot on an iPhone.
In reading about it, they make the blurb about it kind of made it sound like you're wondering the whole time, is she really crazy or is she not? It sounds like you never wondered that.
I not really. I mean, there are times when they do toy with that, and he does use that as a narrative device, but it's really well played. I really don't want to give anything away because I want everybody to experience this movie. It is that good. It needs to be seen.
And instead, that didn't come to like the Moline Theater, I don't think. I don't remember seeing it on the lineup. We did get Pacific Rim Uprising in a religious film, etc. And so the thing that might be very interesting and important in terms of the way that films are made and smart stuff, we have to go see a limited release.
But on top of this, you're talking about a horror movie that sounds like it's pretty marketable if you wanted it to be. I mean,
you could market Steven Soderbergh. I mean, from the director of Ocean's 11, for crying out loud.
Right. I
Why
mean,
not?
this is, Shutter Island would be a movie that probably is in the vicinity of this, that they did throw it to screens where with using Scorsese and DiCaprio, and obviously this is probably far better than that. But I don't know. Why not try to make waves with this movie?
Sure.
It's a weird thing I noticed this week about there was a thing going on Twitter where there were just a number of people who said, "Well, who the fuck is Claire Foy? Emmy nominee for The Crown? She was an Emmy nominee? I know she's not that well known, but people, come on. I mean, if you're a little bit engaged in popular culture, you might have an awareness of this."
What if you're just engaged in movies? I don't know.
I can understand not knowing who Ben Mendelsohn is, but but Claire Foy.
Eventually that came around because he was involved in multiple projects, but I do remember that conversation. Speaking of, coming on something and being a part of something, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you've been on it for 5 years and you don't know. Yeah, I understand the feeling.
Well, when did you get here?
The Jack Black of High Fidelity of this podcast. They just started showing up.
That is weird. We didn't actually invite him back. He just was here the next.
Right, right. Well,
kidding.
that is kind of how it happened.
Well, we just kind of threw out an open invitation.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, this is always an open invitation.
both Sean and I were afraid to ask the other.
And they were worried about my mental stability, so they just kept putting my name on the website.
We were worried about each other. I was worried he'd get upset because you came from my friend from work, and then he didn't want to upset me by inviting you on, so we just kept you on as a guest for like a year.
So this is like the most charitable thing ever in podcast history.
Eventually, we're just like, he's part of the show, right? It's better with him on it. And we both agreed.
Man.
Much, much better.
Oh.
I think it was the 2001 when you couldn't do it. We were like, yeah, we need him to be on here at the time.
Yeah, that was November of 2013, yeah.
Long time ago.
Secretly, I actually hate Bob.
Secretly, we all hate each other.
Oh no, don't lift the veil too much.
We're an unholy trinity every week.
We're like Aerosmith. We don't talk to each other. We drive on separate buses, but when we hit the stage...
We're like really super polite characters from Waiting for Guffman. Can't just say anything.
That secretly makes us really great actors.
And then I didn't know this was out, but Sean went and saw Best Friend Fiends or whatever. It's Fiends, Best Friends.
This is not out yet. March 31st, I believe it is. One night only via Fathom Events, but I had a chance to watch it a little bit early. Best Friends is the movie from Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero. Not directed by Tommy.
Written by Greg, though.
But written by Greg. This is the single greatest theater-going experience of my life.
Wow.
I
Without an audience?
I was there was a small audience at this. And there were four of us, but there was an audience. And the four of us had the best time ever watching this movie. This movie is completely insane. It's The Room. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they managed, with the weight and knowledge of The Room behind them, they still managed to make something that is The Room. In terms of quality, in terms of incompetence, it's all there. The weirdest part of it is that I cannot, for the life of me, decide whether or not the incompetent touches are intentional or legitimate incompetence. Either they're the greatest artists on the planet, or they're just as bad as Tommy.
Well, that was, if you paid attention to the Disaster Artist press tour, eventually James Franco starts saying, it's not just Tommy. Greg's messed up too. You got to understand this.
So let me attempt to tell you what the plot of this movie is. This is because this is going to be very difficult.
Before you go, there's a part 2 coming out.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
And I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Oh, it's because it's glorious. It's just glorious. So the idea is that Sestero is playing a homeless man. We meet him. He's wearing a T-shirt that's covered in blood, and he's got cuts all over his face. And we'll never find out why that is the rest of the movie. Just, you're going to see it. It's never going to come up.
It's like the mom having cancer. Okay.
Or Tommy's history in real life.
He meets a guy who runs a morgue, or is it a funeral home? I don't know. But he's wheeling dead bodies in and out. And it seems to be a legitimate business. The plot turns on Greg's character, John. You won't know his name for most of the movie, by the way. You'll just happen to catch it. And Tommy's character, I want to leave his name out because I want you to see what his name is in the movie because it's a great moment. I don't want to ruin any of this. But basically, he offers John a job. The Tommy Wiseau character offers him a job to work in the morgue. And for the past however many years he's been running this thing, he's been keeping gold and silver teeth pulled out of dead people with plans to sell them as scrap, which apparently he has so many teeth from dead people that he's got a large amount of money. And that's the plot. That is the plot. That's the plot of the movie. Is them trying to figure out ways to do this, which apparently is a thing. Scrap teeth is apparently
Maybe
a thing.
that's where he really got his money in real life.
Maybe. It is based, it is inspired by a true story.
Yeah.
But it is so bizarre. This movie, the last 5 minutes, it's been incompetent room level ridiculousness, and then the last 5 minutes finds a new gear of fucking weird. There's a clown, a dead clown. There's rubber masks of people's faces. There's Tommy as kind of a Leatherface character. You've got to see it for yourself. I'm not spoiling anything. You're just gonna look at it and go, how the fuck did they come up with that?
Are you with me? This sounds absolutely incredible. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It is everything you could have wanted.
Well, the Disaster Artist did an amazing job of making the room kind of good in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, it wasn't just a piece of crap we're laughing at. We're kind of like, okay, I'm starting to see the honesty here, the true effort and passion that was behind this movie. And then I had heard that this was actually kind of good, the best friends, whatever. But maybe it's apparently good in a different way.
I mean, maybe they've pulled off like one of those James Franco pranks where this is all intentional incompetence.
That's insane. I mean, that's really.
It would take. I mean, it would take an amazing attention to detail, like a really the amount of weird detail that they do, because so much of this stuff is such nonsense, non sequitur nonsense that you just would more likely come from people who are just coming up with this on the fly, as opposed to somebody who plotted this out perfectly. There's a scene in a car, and everybody's seen scenes in cars from movies. They're either shooting through one of the side windows or the front window. Usually, just generally speaking, you're going to do that so you can see the two characters who are sitting in the front seats talking. This movie decides to shoot this scene from the back seat, where we're staring at the backs of their heads as they're talking. And it makes no sense. Why are you shooting it from here? And it's just a static shot of the back of their heads as they're talking. They're kind of turning towards each other, so you kind of see the sides of their faces. But you're so blown away by how stupid it is that this guy's sitting in the back seat with the camera. It's so dumb. And you can just hear that from some kind of moron who's thinking, I'll just do it differently than everybody else. I'll sit in the back seat. That's a great idea. Let's shoot that.
This is art.
See, I can hear Tommy saying that 15 years ago. I can hear Greg saying, Tommy would have done this. Let's do this.
Which is why part of it, like, there's that part of me that thinks that, like, if this director were truly a genius, he would try and think about the ways that he could make it like The Room. And that is such a fine line, though, because if you tip over and you tip your hand and you let people know that you're doing something that's trying to be like The Room, you're going to ruin the fun.
Right.
And they never tip their hand. It feels legitimately incompetent and at the same time absolutely fucking brilliant.
I'm excited.
March 31st, one night only.
God, I gotta find a way to make that
In
work.
Davenport, probably?
Yes.
Fathom events, yeah.
It is an absolute must-see. It's maybe my favorite thing I've seen in a movie theater outside of The Big Lebowski. Just in terms of experience.
All right.
I can't defend it as a movie, but, you know.
We know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, the room's far beyond a movie.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know how I'm going to categorize this when I'm doing my new list, my week 11 list of the movies. I have no idea where to put this. I don't know how to judge it.
Theatrical experience means a lot.
It does.
It really does.
But can I put this ahead of Black Panther as a movie?
No, we can put it ahead of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. Oh, it's like...
DVD on 4K experiences to affect your viewing experience. Wow.
Yeah, me and the guys I saw it with have been quoting this movie nonstop since we saw it and driving everybody at work crazy with the nonsense that we keep talking. Oh.
Wow, we're not even halfway through the show. We won't talk about this movie, but I did watch Mom and Dad simply because Sean kind of disgustingly said it existed.
Well, I want you to talk about this. I want to hear about this.
I enjoyed it way more than I should have, I think, especially being a parent.
If you know the plot of this movie, that is hilarious.
The movie is about parents trying to kill their kids. And first of all,
as a parent, I love this movie.
The kids in it are an older girl and a young boy, which is what I have.
Yep.
The young girl talks like my daughter. The young boy talks like my son. It was just kind of funny. I don't know. I just kind of was laughing the whole way through it. At times they try to play it straight, and then Nicolas Cage is in it. And just, it's not nearly as disgusting as the premise sounds. They actually have fun with this movie. And, I don't know. It's not, no need to be disgusted, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's a Nicolas Cage over the top, more fun than it should be type of movie.
Is he like? Does he have any of those like iconic crazy moments?
Oh yes, there is maybe the best one ever.
Oh really? Oh, wow.
It's hard to say because it's so fresh and you forget about him being in a bear suit and and I couldn't even think of
Punching
something.
women, bees on his face, yeah.
This,
Shouting the ABCs.
yes, there's a lot of that, especially the second half of this movie. It's for Nicolas Cage alone. I mean, Selma Blair is really similar type of stuff, but this, I don't know. There's a scene with the pool table that's just it's amazing. I want to tell you what he does, but you really should just watch it for yourself.
Where is this available at, out of curiosity?
I saw it. I rented it on either Redbox or Family Video.
Okay, so currently direct, like if on demand or
Yeah.
going to the actual video store if you're actually around one of those anymore. So
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll be on Netflix eventually. It's more fun than it should be. It really is.
If you're somebody who doesn't appreciate movies, ironically, is there a chance you could be offended by this?
Well, I mean, parents trying to kill their kids. But I mean, it's
But
like
I mean, how straight do they? I mean, like,
it's like Dawn of the Dead. Like they're all lined up at the school, like they're
Okay.
in the mall. I mean, it's pretty silly. But I don't know. People get offended by that. So I think you would appreciate it just by the simple fact that Nicolas Cage is in it. But it was far more entertaining than I expected it to be.
better or worse than One Man Army?
Man, they're different. Man. They're kind of, I'd say this is better, but only because of recency bias. But I was in love with that one when I saw that too. And he's a guy who is doing it on purpose and somehow is making it work. You know, you're just talking about them doing it on accident with best friends or whatever it's called. Nicolas Cage is doing it on purpose, and he does it well most of the time. I don't know how he does it, and
He's just an odd enough dude where the way that he looks, the way that he talks, the way that he acts, it all is this perfect conglomeration of weird that seems to fit into that type of a film, that high concept, low concept type of idea.
But even The Wicker Man, he was in an interview like years later going, I was just trying to be funny. That's not a comedy. But you succeeded.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed
Classic.
All right, our undisputed classic this week is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Is that the right wording?
Yes.
I saw it for the first time.
You take the lead.
Am I leading on this
You
one?
take the lead.
Did I choose this one? I forgot.
Sean did.
Okay. Well, this is my third time watching this movie, but the first time in roughly 13 years, actually. And the first time watching my own copy, oddly enough. That's how that happens sometimes when you collect over time. But it stars Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet. Jim Carrey is something of I wouldn't call him a loser, but definitely a loner of some type, and his name is Joel. He comes across this woman played by Kate Winslet named Clementine Krasinski, and she's got blue hair, and she explains herself as the manic pixie dream girl. And that idea that has advanced itself so far along since that time, in this film, it's played ironically a little bit. They have something of a backwards love affair, and it is done through the eyes of Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry. And if you know Kaufman's work at all, we're talking Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, Synecdoche, New York. He has such an interesting way of telling a story. It's non-linear a lot of the time. It's very strange most of the time. And that doesn't appeal to everyone, and I understand that. But I think that this is one of the best films ever made, by almost a long shot. And it has to have climbed my list, watching this as a 38-year-old versus a 25, 26-year-old. It has so much more resonance this time around. Not only is this my favorite performance from my favorite actress in Kate Winslet, But Jim Carrey, the things that he does really well that are almost taken to the nth degree in something like The Truman Show, which he's often lauded for good reason, this is his best performance in my opinion too, where his melancholy isn't over the top. I believe that Jim Carrey identifies with Joel a little bit in this movie, and you can see it in his expressions. He has such a longing for her and for that type of companionship that he almost doubles over on himself. He can't get over himself. And him realizing that and going through that journey with him is something, as a 38-year-old, I can identify with relationships in my life too. This is such a fascinating movie as a science fiction movie, as a romance, as a quirky little indie film, as a non-linear type of film, in teaching you how film narrative can work in certain ways. All over the place. This is a classic. It's a modern classic, but to me, it is completely undisputed. There's no reason to say this is not a classic, basically. And I'm going to get off my soapbox. You guys can actually say something too, but
I'm with you. I mean, you're absolutely right. This is an absolute classic. It works on every possible level. This movie is just beautiful, brilliant. Jim Carrey is really great in this. There are times when that Jim Carreyness could push things over in the wrong directions. There are times when I think that other actors could have given this a little bit more weight. But that's a lot of me bringing a lot of stuff about Jim Carrey to the movie. That's me thinking about Mask Jim Carrey and struggling to take him seriously. That's where his performance in Man on the Moon, I think, really set the proper tone for this. I think it was a really important turning point for my ability to see him as a guy who can be serious, and so watching this, thinking of the Jim Carrey of that way, in that way, really works for me. This movie is just lovely. It's just a lovely film. So many great performances, so many little touches. Mark Ruffalo and Kirsten Dunst are just wonderful, and Elijah Wood, that little creep, and, just so great. And is it Tom Wilkinson?
Yeah,
Tom Wilkinson, just bringing so much more weight and gravity to this idea, and yet still with the perfect light touch to his performance. Everything about this movie to me just works. It's just purely perfection. I adore this movie.
Now we need to know. This is the real test here.
You guys lead in. There's nothing to complain about. You could possibly not say anything bad about this movie, Bob.
You managed to do it last week, so go right ahead.
I was right last week. And Sean was wanting to agree with me. He kept saying nostalgia glasses over and over again. This one's amazing. You ever watch a movie while you're putting furniture together? You're not really paying attention. I was doing that watching this movie, but it was still, I didn't miss anything. It was just really weird, really neat. Just a neat movie. There's no movie like this. Other than the Charlie Kaufmanisms, and it's just weird. His movies seem like homework. I never look forward to watching them. And then I watch them, I'm like, they're great. But then I never go back and watch them again because they just seem like after a week goes by, I'll probably be like, I know what this is. I don't need to see it again. Even though it's an easy watch, it's a great movie. Everybody in it's phenomenal. Elijah Wood is creepy as hell. I mean, you're talking about that, what is that, Unsane movie. It was like that level creepy. Only it seems more okay because she doesn't know what's going on. And just, I don't know, that was really, really good. And then the whole romance of the Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet thing it's fun, it's heartbreaking, it's kind of a little bit of everything. Yeah. And then the way it ends is just, you keep putting yourself in his shoes or her shoes or whatever, and it just, would you even want to how mad could you get? And then no matter how mad you got at anybody at some point, you're going to have a memory that's great, and you're not going to want to lose that memory.
Yep.
Yeah. The emotional honesty here is so raw, even for a movie that is this light and this weird. The emotional honesty is raw. It is painful, and when they're listening to the tapes of the movie, that's hard stuff. That is rough stuff, and it's brilliantly handled.
That is such a great term for this movie, emotional honesty. because you can say, even no matter how much in love you are with somebody, no matter how much you love a child, for example, you can still say things in your head that would be hurtful out loud. Generally, the other party doesn't hear that kind of thing. And this film has the balls to put that out in the open through a device that works for a film. I have said in the past, when wanting to forget about certain things in life, I would say, I'd like to Eternal Sunshine this. Can I please do that? That would be great. And then I realized that was such an unfortunate thing to say. Kirsten Dunst's character shows us that you don't want to do that. You want to have that kind of emotional honesty with yourself, no matter what. Put yourself through that kind of pain. Grow from it. Learn from it. For Charlie Kaufman to be able to weave that into a film structure, there's just so much intelligence going on with this film that I almost can't comprehend it. And the chemistry between Kate Winslet and Jim Carrey, who couldn't possibly be two different actors in terms of where they've come from, the kind of characters they've played over time, one coming from comedy, one coming from classical film and stage acting. You believe them together, absolutely. And the way that she gives a dignity to the kind of throwaway lines that he has about you've got to F someone to really get them to like you, like, wow, that takes some nuts to say. In the way that she dignifies herself in those particular moments instead of breaking down. I love that about this character.
One of the other brilliant things is that soundtrack is incredible. They drop in a song by Beck that could not be. It's one of the greatest music placements in film history. And I found myself debating with myself is, how bad would it be to really forget something? Because on one hand, you don't remember it, so now it's gone. But on the other hand, you're watching this guy fight with his memories in a way. It was just kind of a neat internal, and it wasn't like I was trying to talk myself into forgetting anything, but it was just kind of just logistics of it, and how bad would it be, or how good would it be? Would you ever want to do it? And why would anybody do it? But here's what would it, just the whole debate I was having while watching the movie was just kind of fun. And the clever way that they set that up via Tom Wilkinson's character, the way there's a scene where he's showing Jim Carrey around his office and showing people having their memories erased, and you see an old woman who's crying over her dead husband, that she'd like to erase those memories because it's so painful that he's not there. It makes the case for it. It makes the case for what they're doing. It's fascinating. And then you get the Kirsten Dunst character, who is, when you really step away from it, she is so essential to this movie.
Oh yeah.
Not just there's so many different ways. She's essential to this plot and the way it works out, and it's brilliant. And that moment where she reads the poem is just so heartbreaking.
Whew. I found myself emotional at a number of points in this movie, and I wish I could tell everyone seeing it, see it when you're young and then come back to it a little bit when you're older, and then maybe again at another point. Maybe because of the way that our minds work when it comes to memories and how those strong feelings can influence your decision making at different points in your life too. There's so much going on here.
And Sean kind of hinted at it, but there's not an ounce of fat on this movie.
No.
You start to wonder about the Mark Ruffalo, Kirsten Dunst, you know what? Because that does kind of look like a side story, and then all of a sudden it weaves everything together, like Sean said. But there's not a wasted second in this movie, and that's kind of rare. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's a part of me in my mind that's trying to fight this battle about it came out in 2004. It's too early to call this classic. No, it's not. Actually, this is one of the genuinely great movies ever made. Yeah,
it's a classic on like its own weird level. It's hard to, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain
because that's a very subjective notion. I know,
right? But I mean, it's, you know, you have your obvious blockbuster classics, and then there's things like this that are there that, you know, only a handful of people see, and then more and more over time, more people see it. And but it still never hits that, level where it's universally known. You know what I'm saying?
If you're going to sit somebody that's, say, new to film and they're 20 years old and they've never seen a film before, and you're going to sit them down with 10 films, and you might go through your head like, well, we've got to show them a Hitchcock film, right? And you've got to have a blockbuster from say, like Casablanca or Gone with the Wind, whatever the case may be. You got to sit them down with Star Wars just for the purpose of that's what film has been about. Okay?
They're going to be sadly disappointed. But go ahead. Finish your point.
You teed him up. You
are, but you are correct. I know you are correct. Keep
Yes.
going.
In theory, you would do that standard thing by setting them up with Hitchcock and whatnot. But man, this deserves Criterion Collection treatment. This deserves preservation treatment. This needs to be on AFI Top 100 lists, etc. And I'm honestly not sure that it is. Not that necessarily matters, but man,
something about Sean called it light, but emotion. What was the word you said?
emotionally honest.
Yeah, but and raw. But light. I feel like there's just something about when you step away from his movies. They're there, they're good, but then they just kind of slow. At least for me, I've noticed. I like adaptation a lot. I like being John Malkovich a lot, but they always just seem to fall back down the further I get away from them, and then you get. Revisit them, and then you realize, oh, this is amazing.
Well, adaptation and being John Malkovich sort of suffer from being perceived as gimmick movies because there's so much more to them than just the central gimmick of you're going inside of John Malkovich's head or Nicolas Cage is playing twins. There's so much more to those movies, but on the surface, it's very easy to look at them and go, that's a gimmick movie. And this one, it's harder to do that with. It's harder to dismiss this as just a gimmick. You could look at it as a movie like how one of those, well, what would you do movies, like Fatal Attraction, well, what would you do in this situation? Or Disclosure, what would you do? But those are lesser movies, greatly lesser movies. But I'm saying that this is a movie that people talk about in that way, where would you do that? What would you do?
Right.
And so that would be the gimmick that you could dismiss, but this movie is so much deeper than that and so much more emotional and so much easier to connect to. And you just can't dismiss this as easily because it's so much more complex than a simple yes or no. You have to think about it for a while and come up with something, come up with an answer. Well, yeah, I think I would get rid of that person. But then you start
Right.
Oh, that opens a door to something else.
I feel like the watchability factor is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's deceiving. It's way more watchable than you think it is, And I think that maybe it suffers from that, or at least in terms of people like me, where I avoid certain movies just when it comes back to rewatching a movie. If you told me to watch it next week, I'll be all over it. But in 4 months, I don't know. And that's what I feel like people like me, kind of the average person, it suffers from that.
Yeah.
Even though it is totally watchable, but you're like, well, I'd rather watch Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like that.
You've hit on something, too. Think of the title, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, unless you're into poems and whatnot. I mean...
That's a super artsy title.
It is a super artsy title. I would much rather watch The Notebook, or something like... Because that's easier for people to go for...
Who the fuck was that guy?
That's my... I go through life...
Joe Dirt guy.
I'm experimenting with voices this week, I don't know what that was, but I tend to do that when I try and explain things in a dumb fashion. No offense to the Southern accent.
That was amazing, though. I love that.
Part of the problem that I think some people will have with this movie and always have had with this movie is that it is one of those non-linear things that is playing around in time a little bit, and that can be people start to think, well, do I have to take notes during this movie? Like, can I not? Because a lot of people want to watch a movie inactively, and this movie does cause you to try and actively watch it to maintain where you are in the story, and that can be overwhelming for the Joe Dirt people.
Yes. I had a conversation following this film trying to express how important it was and having a hard time doing so and wanting to say, this is why I watch movies, is this movie. Because to me, this is art, this whole thing, and I always want one of these things to reach this level. I always want to feel like this is so important to life. Every time you go into an art museum, you're supposed to look at everything and think that it's important, right? Because it's art, because a museum has chosen it because of its desirability and all of the thought-provoking senses and whatnot. But there's times that I'm looking at a piece of art and I say, that sucks. But sometimes I'm looking at a piece of art and think that really means something to me. And on the scale of life, movies to me is the medium with which I experience life more than any other kind of medium. More than TV, more than books, etc. And something like this is so representative of what my life's experience is and what it means to me to be alive that it encapsulates what this entire medium, this podcast, etc., really means. It's this right here. And that's why I would want to start somebody out. In a selection of 10 films, I would pick this.
Oh, yeah, and I think, I think the people who watch this movie like it. It's not a Magnolia where it's more abstract, or the Terrence Malick movies where I can get either side of the argument. You let off with you set me up where I couldn't criticize it, but I really don't know what you would criticize about it other than not watching it to begin with, because you don't want to watch something that's too artsy. That would be the...
You'd rather watch the Notebook.
But you know what I'm saying? It seems like the criticisms would come before they even got to the movie.
Yep, you better believe it. With the title.
Number 18 in 1988. Squeezed and pulled and hurt my neck in 1988.
Squeezed and pulled and hurt your neck in 1988.
All right, 1988. Oh, 2 hours in. We got this.
Okay, 2 to get through really quick. I can't see my phone, and so I don't know for sure the titles of the ones that I didn't watch. One of them starred Alan Alda.
That is called A New Life.
A New Life. Okay, Anne Margaret, Alan Alda seems like a typical Diane Thomas type of film where you're in your middle ages now and you're divorced and new things can happen to you. It's okay. You're not dead yet. Okay, moving on to the next one. It's stars Jacqueline Bisset, I think. High season. And I don't remember what it's about, but I was excited to think that it might be about weed. And we just happened to miss it by a couple weeks with our weed discussion, but I don't know.
I can read it, though.
Be my guest, because I can.
On the Isle of Rhodes, Catherine, an expatriate English photographer, lives with her daughter. A young local wants to encourage tourism, so he commissions a sculpture of the unknown tourist for the town square. The sculptor he brings to Rhodes is Kate's ex-husband. A New Life sounds way better.
Yes.
Middle-aged couple going on blind dates because they divorced.
Yes. It sounds like It's Complicated or something like that. The 2 that I did actually watch, I'll start with Johnny Be Good, starring Anthony Michael Hall, Robert Downey Jr., Uma Thurman in her first film appearance. This is a weird movie in that you've got a little bit of The Breakfast Club in there. Paul Gleason literally is in this movie as the bad guy again, the coach that has an ulterior motive to get to a college-level coaching position and is using his star quarterback, Johnny Walker, played by Anthony Michael Hall. And this dude can really throw. If you watch this movie, Anthony Michael Hall has got an arm. He knows how to sling it, and you can see it. It's not just your typical sports movie where...
It's not Gina Davis hitting a home run.
Yes. Okay. Gina Davis, by illustrating the woman doing the thing, it's not really the example I would have used, but you are correct. Somebody that looks so awkward doing an athletic move. Tom Cruise, for example, doing an athletic thing. Very awkward.
It was okay in all the right moves. When they weren't showing football.
Okay. Fair enough. But in this particular case, Robert Downey Jr. is his friend. They're trying to figure out where he's going to go to college. So he's being recruited by all of these very overzealous recruiters. And that is comical in itself. It's almost like in Blues Brothers when you watch all the soldiers show up and it's like, hut, 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 hut. It's a comedy, but it has some serious moments and that you're supposed to figure out what is he going to choose, blah, blah, blah.
It's weird. If you make this movie 15, 20 years later, it's the biggest controversy on ESPN. This is the movie that the NCAA doesn't want you to see, because it's got this guy. They've got like people driving cars with women in them up to his house, and there's cash and all this ways they're trying to get him to go to their school. Everything that they did back in the 80s, like the SMU scandal that brought down schools, they're trying to treat as this wacky comedy, and it would become very serious in this day and age, which is kind of funny. The problem I have with this movie is that I can never take Anthony Michael Hall in that way. He's always going to be the farmer kid. He's always going to be the nerd from the Breakfast Club. I know he was growing up and he filled out really well in this, but he's still that guy to me. I can't see him as the jock. It's weird.
He's still McLovin.
I'm with you, and he does feel like he's a bigger guy in this movie. He's well cut. I believe him in terms of a quarterback when he's under a helmet, but when he's out of his helmet, it doesn't always seem like it's the right fit. But it is an interesting comedy about stuff that does come later, like you said. I mean, Old Tex, that's got to be SMU right there. And this is available on Amazon Prime to watch right now if you're interested in it. I would recommend it based on just your knowledge after this film.
I always wanted it to be funnier than it was, and it never finds that second gear of funny.
No, as hard as Robert Downey Jr. tries, because he is his full Robert Downey Jr.-ness in this one.
It's like take that character from Back to School and like take it even that much more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Less than zero, just less drugs. And also, that one made like $22 million as well, which is not a bad total for 1988. The other one we'll talk about, Biloxi Blues, made I think $40-some million. And this is started out as a play by Neil Simon and evolved into a movie starring Matthew Broderick. As limited as this film is because it is a play transferred to film, it's set mostly within barracks during Army training in a very warm Biloxi, Mississippi. There are some genuinely funny and introspective moments with Biloxi Blues. I thought it was going to be a war movie. It's not. It's very limited to conversations amongst a group of, say, 5-6 individuals. I don't know really what to think about it. Christopher Walken plays the drill sergeant here, and he's intimidating. He brings a certain gravitas to a drill sergeant, which is fine. But it doesn't go too far to the comedy side. It doesn't go too far to the serious side for me to really think of it after having viewed it. I'm just glad that I saw it because of those limited funny moments.
This is 1988. It was a weird time. It was a very weird time because at that time you could slap the name Neil Simon on a movie, and you kind of had a potential blockbuster just by those limited standards, and that you can't do that anymore. There's no playwright who can put their name on a movie and people go, "I got to go see that." But in 1988, that was a thing, and Matthew Broderick was a real star. The thing about that really hurts Biloxi Blues, at least for me, it did, is they marketed this basically as, "Hey, Ferris Bueller's in the Army." And it's like, no, that's not what this is. This is completely different. He's not a Bugs Bunny-like character. He's not a guy who knows all the answers. He's not cocky. He's just as mixed up as everybody else is. He's playing dramatic moments. He's playing some comedy, but not the comedy that you think of that you associate with Ferris Bueller. And that really hurt the movie a great deal for me because I couldn't separate Matthew Broderick, at least in 1988. Matthew Broderick and Ferris Bueller couldn't be separated from me. And until election, I could not get him away from that.
Even Glory?
I didn't see Glory then, so...
I had the problem with Glory myself, and we've already talked about that as a classic. So when we bring it to the show next year as a 30-year film, it'll be interesting to think of it again, having Biloxi Blues now in my mind. But I'm glad that I saw it, but it's just, I'm with Sean. You can't separate the Ferris from it, and the film doesn't lean too heavily either way, the drama or the comedy.
Yeah, so we're going to be sticking with Matthew Broderick for at least another week.
Yes, we will.
Next week, the big movie is Ready Player One. I read the book for the podcast.
Oh, well done, you. Josh, where's his gold star?
We all get
he doesn't
gold
have time for
stars today.
TV, but he's got time for Ready Player One.
I'm at work with an audiobook on.
Oh, okay.
I don't have time to read.
Do I have to read this book?
He doesn't like to read movies, so I guess this does make sense.
I like to read movies as long as they're like fucked up horror movies. Ready Player One, which means our classic will be War Games, which in the book at least played a prominent role in the book. No idea if they even mentioned it in the movie. But we'll see.
Technically, on this show, we've covered War Games as part of 1983's coverage. But at the time, I didn't actually revisit the film, so I'm glad that we're going back to it.
And then our top 5 is going to be references to other movies from Ready Player One, either the book or the movie. We will provide a list from the book on our Facebook page if you want to look at that to make your top 5s or just make up movies. I don't care. Also coming out is God's Not Dead 3? 3.
What other wayward former
crying?
TV stars starring in this one? We had Kevin Sorbo previously. Who's in this one?
Lucy Lawless. I don't know.
Ted McGinley.
Oh,
Oh, so it's the last one at least.
Is it? Is that for real? Like, you're not fucking with me?
Wait,
You're,
God is
this
dead?
a prank?
I have no idea.
Oh, you dick.
Which one's Ted McGinley again?
He was the second best friend on oh God, I
Married
forgot
with
the movie.
Children?
Yes, Married with
Yeah,
Children.
he's the one who every time he's in a TV show, it gets canceled.
Yeah, Love Boat.
That's why I
Married
was
with
saying it's the
Children.
last
Yeah.
God's Not Dead.
Ah, boom! There you go.
You know, it's a great joke when you got to explain it.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, so I guess that's our show. Next week there's movies from '88 coming out. I don't have them readily available.
Neither do I.
Neither does Josh, so we'll get to it then. But yeah, Ready Player One, I'm assuming we'll all probably see that most likely. And hopefully it's good. I'm hearing good things about it.
Surprised, honestly.
The trailer didn't look anything like the book.
The trailer,
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
especially the animated stuff, just looked terrible.
The whole book is in the animated world. Like, they don't go into the real world very often. So the trailer, they're in the real world a lot. So I don't know. I'm curious how they're going to... But Spielberg is a watchable guy, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Before we end the show, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you want to be a Patreon supporter, head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon to get yourself a credit on the show and help us grow the podcast. We'll start with our key grip level in Charlie Messing. Our character actors, Josh and Christina.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our special effect level, Corey.
May the Force be with you.
Our associate producer, Jason from New Mexico.
Everybody has to eat shaving cream once in a while.
And our movie stars, Dave Severs and Uncle Jeff.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Like I said, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. And that'll help us grow the show. And then, go to iTunes, subscribe, rate and review the show. We'll read your review on the air. Otherwise, if we have time, we'll do Flick Chart. You'll find out when the credits are over, if we do it or not. See you next week.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the 3 best friends that anybody could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best 3 friends that anybody can have. I mean, the 3 best friends that anybody can have. That's right, the 3 best friends.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or Batman Returns.
Eternal Sunshine.
Agreed?
Okay, fine. Eternal Sunshine or Babe.
Eternal Sunshine.
Oh, God.
We've lost Josh.
Well, currently, Babe is in my top 50. Eternal Sunshine is not.
Really? Wow.
But he said he would possibly throw it in.
Yes, this week has made a major difference. Oh, no. It's Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely recency bias. It's that.
I watched Babe a couple weeks ago, too.
For me, it's
okay.
Eternal Sunshine or Pan's Labyrinth.
Eternal Sunshine.
Agreed.
I don't know where I'd go on that one. But since you guys went, I'm just going to take the no road. Eternal Sunshine or Rope?
Eternal Sunshine.
Agreed.
Agree on that one. Eternal Sunshine or Liar Liar?
Eternal Sunshine.
Interesting. Agreed.
I don't know why I found that funny. Eternal Sunshine or Wall-E?
Eternal Sunshine.
Agreed.
We're in the top 20 right now. Eternal Sunshine or North by Northwest?
Eternal Sunshine.
Agreed.
I think you're right.
That's what came into my head when I was thinking of a Hitchcock film, like somebody would slap down North by Northwest.
Eternal Sunshine or Chasing Amy?
That's the first tough one for me. I really love Chasing Amy.
It's hard for me not to. I mean, the recency bias is really, really strong with me right now. So, if we watch Chasing Amy in 6 months, maybe it would be different.
Yeah.
As of now, is Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I'm with you.
Oh, didn't we do Chasing Amy?
Oh,
as a
yeah, we've done
classic?
it before.
It wasn't that long ago, if I'm not
Maybe a
mistaken.
year.
Yeah, slightly over a year ago. And so for that, recency stays, within the past couple of years for me. If it's been before the podcast, then that's not recent. But since this podcast, since we discuss it so much, and then I feel like I finally get all of my thoughts out, not recency. Bias, then. It's going to be Eternal Sunshine for me on this one as well.
Yeah, for me, recency is more. It's fresh in my head. A year ago is not fresh in my head, so it's not. Eternal Sunshine or Almost Famous? That's Almost Famous for me. Doesn't quite do that.
Thank you for making Almost Famous then.
Eternal Sunshine by the slightest of margins.
It is our number 3 movie at the moment. And I mean, that's part of the fun of the, we've had other movies and the recency bias has not helped those movies. I mean, like I said, this is the type of movie that I'll get away from it and it'll just fall back down the list. But I watch it again, it'll float right back up. I mean, I love Chasing Amy. That's one of my favorite romantic comedies of all time. There's definitely days where I'll pick that over this, but right now, not.
Now, I guess we didn't get to this during the conversation. Where are you going to fall on Eternal Sunshine in terms of your top 50?
I don't even know my top 50. It's hard to say.
Because, I mean, you placed it in this voting, you placed it above a couple things that I thought were at least close to your list.
Chasing Amy was in it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll pull up my top 50 now and look.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Babe is in my 30s or lower 20s, and it's above that and above Almost Famous now. So
I think you had Almost Famous lower than Babe, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
A good question.
Something to think about. Was there anything more to vote against, or was that the last one in terms of the flick chart?
Good Will Hunting, which I believe we knocked that down. Yeah, Good Will Hunting would have made it. Yeah, Good Will Hunting, or I think I'd go Good Will Hunting over this as well.
I think so.
Whew. It's Eternal Sunshine for me. I don't think Good Will Hunting is in my top 50, but podcast-wise...
We thought for sure Good Will Hunting was going to be our number 1 movie, and Josh totally ruined that.
Just like I ruined Arrival for the number 1. Yeah.
Which is one I'm surprised you ruined that. Although in hindsight it makes sense. It looks like it'll be right around in the... I mean, all these movies are... Jesus. No Country for Old Men. It's Toss Up, Taxi Driver. Got like in that 30 to 40 range somewhere.
I think for me that kicks out my number 50, which if I'm not mistaken was either About Time or Prometheus. So that's kind of a big decision to make.
Yeah, you have Prometheus, The Fugitive, Unforgiven, About Time, Big Lebowski, Serendipity. Wow, that's lower than I thought it'd be. Then Almost Famous. Thank you for putting that ahead of Serendipity. I appreciate that. And then Anchorman 2 above that? What the fuck?
Sorry.
I don't know how do you... I mean, it's... I don't know. My list could change on a daily basis if I really wanted it to. It's really
That's why you
hard.
can make fun of mine, because I thought about this for weeks on end.